All righty. Good evening, Eddie. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And you're tucked away inside a cave. I'm looking forward to understanding a bit more of the background that you've got. I'm in a pretty sterile home setting, but are you in your winery at the moment?
Yeah, I'm in my lab actually, and it's obviously inside the winery. The winery was built into a mountain, so we have a natural cave-like environment where there's no variation in temperature, whether it's summer or winter.
And that's perfect. That's perfect because typically, we'll come on to a few of those things and welcome everyone who's joining from everywhere. And already I can see the chat room is kicking off with people telling us where they are. So please do share where you are, share what you're drinking, tell us what you're drinking, anything that you've drunk recently that you want to tell anyone else about. So as a form of recommendation, just to share that kind of information. And we will also have, you'll see at the bottom there, whichever channel you're on, welcome to those on Facebook, welcome to those on Instagram, and of course, welcome to everyone on Zoom, where you have the Q&A. And Eddie, it is up to you and I to allow enough time to answer everybody's questions towards the end of this session, and we will endeavor to do so. So please stick in any questions you have. I've no doubt that Eddie is going to throw up some mind-spinning concepts or philosophies or just insights to where he is, and then we'll talk around those. So what we're going to do this evening, folks, as you're all playing in, we're going to take a quick look at basically, Eddie's setting, where he is, Lebanon. I want to understand a bit more about Eddie and where, his background in winemaking and so on. We're going to taste two wines tonight, and we're going to talk about more, but we're going to taste Paradiddle de Canafar, that many of you will know already, and a new wine from Eddy that we were able to pick up and sort of support at the time of lockdown. This was part of the COVID Rescue Fund last year, and that's Paradiddle de Canafar 2014. So we're going to taste both of those. We'll also get a bit of a snippet into, sort of some clips of the area where you are, and I'll show you some raise empties, and no doubt there'll be questions of also what's going on in your life and current affairs there. So, Eddie, my man, why don't we kick off with, we've got a great number of people streaming in already. I just thought it'd be worthwhile sort of setting the scene, the positioning where you're based. So what I'm going to do, which is sort of the first rule of live TV, is get this right first time or it goes terribly wrong. So I'm going to share my screen, and I just thought we'd go look at a Google map and see where your winery is based. But where in the world are you? Okay, so here we go. Share screen. Let's do that one. Boink. And that one. And then we got to go into here, and we're going to go escape out of that. All the preparation you can see is clearly done. So so here we are. We zoom out. We're going into what I call Middle East, below Turkey, next door to Syria, and accompanied to Jordan. So, just in terms of the setting, is it worth just, laying out, in terms of climates, weather, is it hot? Is it hot some of the time, Mediterranean some of the time? Is it continental? Can you just give us sort of a snippet of what people experience temperature-wise and making wine there?
Yeah, so you can see we're in the eastern part of the Mediterranean, just right next to Cyprus. So obviously it's a Mediterranean climate, but Lebanon has two mountain ranges going from north to south. And these two mountain ranges, between the two mountain ranges, is what creates the Bekaa Valley. And so the western mountain range protects the Bekaa Valley from too much humidity coming from the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
So this is one of the quality factors for making wines in Lebanon. In terms of the temperature, so we can expect on average maybe 33 to 35 degrees Celsius during the summer. When we get heat waves, it can go up to 40, maybe even 45. But those, unfortunately, they're becoming more common. And in the winter, we get a lot of snow. Let me remind you, we're at 1,200 meters altitude, the winery, that is. So we get a lot of snow. We can reach up to a meter of snow in the winter.
Okay, so it does. I guess I mean that's somewhat like a continental climate where it's extreme hot in the summer, extreme cold in the winter. So it is the environs, it's the microclimate of, well, let's say the macroclimate between these two mountain ranges that creates the Bekaa Valley. So you have your own, let's say, climate throughout the year there. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's definitely continental. You have other winemaking regions which are facing the Mediterranean. They have a more Mediterranean
Gotcha.
climate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to say here that Lebanon is 80% of the soil in Lebanon is calcareous limestone. Where I am, it's actually Jurassic limestone. And this is very rare on the planet. It's very good for winemaking, for growing grapes. And so in that sense, we're very lucky to have a very nice, conducive terroir for making wine.
And is that limestone behind you where you're sitting?
Yes, absolutely. You can see. I don't know if you can see, or that's calcareous limestone. Absolutely.
How convenient that you just threw up a calcareous limestone backdrop as you introduced it. That's pretty handy. Okay, super. Okay, so I mean, it's just, I mean, for all of us who've been either in lockdown or just, wine lovers and want to explore different parts of the world, genuinely, Eddy, your wines in our range, they are a complement to the breadth and variety and quality of what we have. And we met each other in 2017, I think it was. I was on a study trip. Let me get out of here. There we go. I was on a study trip and I tasted a lot of wines that week, met a lot of really beautiful, brilliant people. I mean anyway, you have a lovely nation in general. I have to say I was moved by them. But I had tasted a lot of wines and plenty were good and some were not to my taste personally. And I was looking to, whilst it was a study trip, I was looking to bring something back for Naked as well. And I remember it was our last afternoon evening, and we were at Chateau Cassara, I think, and we did this like vertical tasting. We were tasting some old wines, I mean old wines, maybe 50s. And I met your father. I tasted through a number of tables, and it was your father was hosting this table. I think it was my last table that I got to, and feeling the clock ticking and my flight leaving the next day or the following day, and going home empty-handed to the Naked crew, trying to justify my expenses. I was thinking, God, I really need to find something. And actually, without shoehorning anything in, I met your father and I tasted your wines, and I thought, oh, thank God for that. And these are the ones. And I shared my enthusiasm with your father, who gave you a call. You drove down. We were having a big dinner outside, and we met. We sat down, and I don't know. There was just something where not something that I hadn't seen in other winemakers there, but something that I knew when I met you. I went to your boutique in Beirut the next evening, and you were showing me these videos that you had done, and I just knew we were on the same wavelength, or rather you were on the same wavelength as our angels. And the wine, you'd covered the wine bit and I approved it. And then the piece where I step back is like, okay, we've got this amazing community of angels with winemakers, and I knew you'd click in. So how have you, fast forward 4 years now, how have you felt, or what was the journey like for you in that?
Well, let me just touch on when you said you talked about the way Naked Wines works, and you have the angels, and how the winemakers are in direct contact with the angels, and that immediately struck a chord with me. It's something that I enjoy doing, and there's something special about being able to communicate directly with consumers, with people who are drinking the wine, and being able to answer their questions or their concerns. So yeah, it's something that. And that was confirmed when I joined the Naked family and started interacting with angels. And what blows my mind is how some other winemakers who have thousands and thousands and thousands of messages, I don't know how they keep up to, but it's something I'm hoping I will be able to do as well.
Think big. And you came on tour with us. What was that? That must have been 2019 or 2018, 2019. And
2018 was the first one.
Yeah. So the delights of Britain, And I think, I know, it's just, I personally, I miss it, you know, going on tasting tour and being face to face with all the customers, the angels. You get a lot of feedback. You get a good insight of, you know, what people really appreciate and so on. But, so tell us then, Eddie, we're going to taste 2 wines. And so why don't we kick off, because it's, you know, it's Tuesday, we still have light here. Whatever you're drinking at home, fill up your glass. Whether you're drinking one of Eddie's wines, let us know. Whatever you're drinking, let us know in the chat. But we're going to start by tasting the Petit Paradis de Canafar, which is an incredible wine. Eddie, the blend is, and you can expand on this, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, and Tempranillo. I mean, you've covered most of Southern Europe in that blend there. So, I mean, where or why or how, where'd you go with these grape varieties?
Right. The wines I make are entirely made with my own grapes. I don't buy grapes, so I try to make the best I can with the different vineyards that I have. That was the first time I tried making a Tempranillo with a carbonic maceration technique, where you have, it's not the yeast that converts the sugar into alcohol, it's an enzymatic process. So what it yields generally are wines with less tannin, but with more fruit. And for me, Petit Paradis being my, it's not the best way to describe it, but let's say an entry-level wine. This is the kind of profile I was seeking, something very fruity and a little bit less tannic. But let's not forget, it has Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and these are wines that will increase the structure, increase the structure of the wine at the same time.
And do you have a glass? Are you drinking anything there, or you have to drive back into Beirut?
I just have to drive down the mountain, so it's okay.
Okay, well, I mean, you know what's best, but well, I'm tasting it, and with the vintage we were on, you know, 2018. It's just has this sort of a polish, an elegance. So it's silky smooth, full of fruit, full of flavor, and there's, you know, I think actually I can see a lot of comments popping up down below, and they're saying Chateau Mozart and how much they appreciate Chateau Mozart, quite a famous winery chateau in Lebanon. And we were very fortunate on that study trip when I met you first. We were very fortunate to get a tour of Mozart, taste Mozart, go into the cellars and so on. But it was what I saw in your wine that sort of slightly modernized things, brought fruit to the fore, protected the purity of fruit. I truly believe it's I think it's a better made wine. Mozart has great vintages and great depth of flavor and character, and in your wine I just thought that's slightly more polished winemaking, and that's what I appreciated in the fact that I thought this will appease to a lot of people, and it has done. And sure, we're here talking to you, you know, flying the flag. Mm-hmm. So we have your Petit Paradis de Canafar, and then this is the new wine, and we can talk about, you know, the circumstances in which we came across this wine, the Paradis de Canafar, which will be new to a lot of people, because we typically had Petit Paradis de Canafar, we had Mago, which we did, and then there's Chateau Canafar, which is just this sort of grand vin, top wine, big beast. But the Paradis de Canafar sits somewhere in the middle. And I mean, why don't you tell us about that, where it sits in your range and why, and then I can expand a bit on how it came to be at Naked at the moment.
Yeah, so the Petit Paradis de Canafar is meant to be easier to drink. As you said, it's meant to be very fruit forward, with softer tannins. I just want to mention at this point that I did not filter or fine the wine, which is why there's a lot of sedimentation in the bottle. Some people have commented on this. But I agree, it's a bit too much, so probably the next vintages will be filtered, so to reduce that. So the Paradis de Canafar is essentially, it's similar to the Petit Paradis, except there's no carbonic maceration. It's entirely made with traditionally vinified wines. And part of the wine has been aged in oak to give it a little bit of oak flavor. The Chateau Canafard, the premium wine, is entirely aged in oak, and that's how I position the three wines.
Gotcha. And the blend, okay, so you have this, and also this Paradiddle Canafard is 2014, so it already has that evolution, signs of maturity, silky smooth, nice sort of tobacco, really the signs of development. But it also just won a silver medal, 91 points, I think, at the International Wine Challenge, which, trust me, is a difficult feat. I used to work there before joining the holy grail of naked wines, and that's amazing. So congratulations, big cheers to Eddy. To get a silver medal for that wine is top dollar. So awesome. And everyone who has it. Now, I think going back to just having a look at the background, the setting, the backdrop, I mean to say, of these wines, I just want to share my screen again at great risk, and just to show you one of the clips that you had shared with me when we met first time back in 2017, and it really painted a picture of where you are, where you're from. So let's go with this again. Share, boom. Okay, so I think this will be muted and play this. Is that loading? There we go. So can you see that, Eddy?
Yes, I can. So what we're doing here, what we're doing here is we were just planting our Sauvignon Blanc vineyard, and it's done by hand, obviously. And since there is no irrigation network, and still until now we don't irrigate our vines, the first couple of years we still have to water the vines in order for them to develop and take root. So this is all done manually, as you can see here, with buckets and a tractor hauling a tank of water.
It's an incredible feat. I mean, and actually, how many vines are you putting into this massive area?
We plant generally 4,000 vines per hectare. That's the density that we plant.
It's a lot of watering. I mean, and this is just for the young vines, just to get them established, and then you're up and running. Is that right?
That's right. And it's important to note, though, that the Bekaa Valley has a lot of water underground. This is how we can get away with no irrigation. In fact, the valley floor sits on top of an underground lake. That's how much water there is.
Okay.
We get a lot of rainfall. I read somewhere we actually get more rainfall, especially in the Canafar area, more rainfall than the UK on average.
Is
but
that right?
all concentrated during the winter season.
I would challenge you on that this week. It's been pretty, we've had a fair share of rain, but anyway, okay, I believe you. So this is just to plant the young vines, so they set their roots, so they can down to the water table and take up the water and start the growth. Then you've got this is a beautiful video. Now you can see up here, 2012 Chateau Canafar, so anyone who wants to watch it on YouTube can find it there. But I just wanted to show this piece here. So this is you building the winery you're in now, and then the clip. So what's going on here?
This is my family. This is my mom and my dad to the right. My mom is filling the bottles using the spouts, and my dad was doing what we're doing here, which is corking the bottle. It was all being done manually. And this is my sister adding the capsule on top. And this feels like ages ago, I think, around 2011 or 2012. Yeah. Fantastic.
And it, have things changed, or have you moved forward, or how's it?
Yeah, I mean, this was when we were still in a garage. We started off in a garage, and since then, around 2013, actually, we moved into the winery that I'm in now.
Yeah. Well, can we see the winery where you are?
Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can unplug this here. So this is what I see. This is my view. This is from my laboratory. This is where I'm sitting right now. And this is the mountain that we built the winery into. You can see it's a light color that limestone would have.
Wow. So you drilled down, you hacked out the side of the mountain and built the winery alongside it. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. over here, all the way over there, and going onto that side. And this allows for, you know, humidity and cool temperature to get into the winery. So we maintain this cool temperature without having to use climate control. And here we have the fermentation space. This is where all the wines are being made. And over to the left here, we have where we age the barrels, the wines in the barrels.
Super. Wow, wow. So, and then you will draw on a varying percentage of that oak barrel for your blend, per blend. Is that what you said? Cheddar Canifar is 100% oak aged, but some of the others will just have a minor percentage. Is that right?
Yeah, the Paradis, well, the 2014 was partly aged in oak. The next vintage of the Paradis is a bit closer to the Chateau, actually. I changed the profile a bit. I wanted to make it closer to the Chateau.
Right. Eddy, just as you settle down, you can have a little sip of wine. I need you to get back up there, my friend. And I need too many questions to ask while you're walking around the winery, please. So yeah,
sure.
Just have a good glug of wine if you want. But I would love to if you could just show us some of the tanks and talk about their varying sizes and about, I can't remember, what are we now, May? So a month or two ago, we were live in New Zealand and in Australia, and there was harvesting. So we had Bill and Claudia. They were going down through the vines with a machine harvester, and then we changed over to Australia, and we had Sam and Nina, and they were doing punch down. So they had their harvest in the Southern Hemisphere. But what they had was typically bigger tanks than what you have. So without having my tank is bigger than your tank scenario, what is the purpose of, let's just say, the tanks on the left of the screen where I'm looking versus those tanks on the right of the screen? So can you just sort of give a bit of, like, invite people into your world? This is your office life, your day life. So why are they so?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. These tanks tend to be small in the winemaking world, but this is a good way to control the quality of the wine. So you can divide a vineyard into little patches from which we harvest and vinify them separately. So we can harvest a big vineyard or larger vineyard in steps as the fruit ripens in the various parts of the vineyard.
Very good.
So
subplots of,
yeah, exactly. These tanks on the left, these are made in Lebanon. These are the tanks that my dad started with when he started making wine. They're about 5,000 liters. And here are the Italian tanks that we purchased afterwards. And they're also about 5,000 liters. We do have a few bigger tanks there on the floor above, which I can't show you, unfortunately. But the biggest tank we have is 13,000 liters, which is useful for blending, essentially.
Got you. When you pull tank A in with tank D and tank F, and that's the blend, you put it all into one homogenized wine. So it's
yes.
Yeah,
right.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And the tanks on the right there, sorry, apologies to anyone who's not enjoying this tank envy that I'm observing myself here, but the tanks on the right here, the Italian ones, is that, have they got a temperature control, that mid band, is that temperature control?
Yes, this is a cooling jacket, so it's a double wall.
Gotcha.
We have water that flows between in this the jacket, which helps cool the wines. And this is more efficient than the Lebanese system, or it's not Lebanese, but this is called a ring around the tank, and it's not as efficient. So we chose to go with the Italian tanks instead.
The Italians, they're efficient. Whoever said anything otherwise, I'm telling you. No, that's brilliant. Ah, lovely. Okay, and so that's, you've got, what are we now? 2020. You got 2020 in tanks there, is that right?
Yeah, there's a few. For example, this is my premium white wines, 2019. I'm going to be bottling it very soon.
Very good.
Yeah.
Oh, Eddy, that's great. Thank you very much. Take a seat, ladies and gentlemen. Eddy Naim, thank you very much. That's wonderful. What I'll do, Eddy, I'm going to give you a break from talking and touring, and I'll take Angels, anyone who's watching over, and I'm going to show you some of the wines that I've been tasting this week, the past couple of days. So every week, well, yeah, every day since lockdown 1 year or so ago. Samples have been sent to my place to taste, and I sort of log, and we keep things moving. And in fact, the amount of wine we've kept moving since March last year is phenomenal, but it involves great, I don't know, can you see all of that? But that's what I get through. And then as soon as I can, put it out to the neighbors, and they come and take it away. But I just wanted to show you a couple of exciting wines that are coming down the line. And this is, well, they don't have labels actually, but it's more an update. So some of you may have seen, it was a winemaker in South Africa called Francois Hasbrook. He sent a tweet out about, and I've told this story before for some of you who've seen it, but he sent a tweet out saying, like, this beautiful vineyard on the Helderberg Mountain in Stellenbosch, premium grapes, Sauvignon Blanc. And he said, it's such a shame that these grapes won't get picked this year because all the tanks were full in South Africa. Nothing was being sold. Remember, they had an alcohol ban in South Africa. So although we've been in lockdown, we've been able to drink our heads off. In South Africa, you weren't able to purchase alcohol. And so there was all the tanks were full, they weren't going anywhere. So he showed this photo of beautiful grapes on the Helderberg Mountain. Shame it won't go anywhere. Tim Atkin, a MW wine critic, replied, that's a tragedy. What can we do about it? He said, well, we just need someone to buy 20, I think he just said 20 or 30,000 bottles of Sauvignon. And I was like, I'll buy 20 or 30,000 bottles of Sauvignon because that looks amazing. And so, we jumped in and, we saved that vineyard, and now the wine has arrived, this Sauvignon Blanc, and it's delicious. It's absolutely delicious. Sometimes I think with Sauvignon Blanc from South Africa, you get a sort of a green pea. So in New Zealand, you get more tropical characters. South Africa, a bit of a green elements. And here it's somewhere in between, but leaning towards the passion fruit of South Africa. Absolutely delicious. And he also has this Syrah, which he had made from the previous vintage, but we were able to take that on board as well. So those wines, well, they've just been bottle labeled in South Africa, so they'll be here, let's say August, let's say September. Very exciting. I love those. Okay, and then I've talked about this one as well. This is just another sample of Luis Vieira's project in Alentejo. That will be coming down the line soon enough as well. So this is Luis Vieira, who's typically based in Lisboa, outside of Lisbon. That wine region is called Lisboa. And then he goes inland to Alentejo, where it's hotter, drier, but you just get such a balance and ripeness of fruit. It's absolutely fantastic. And then last one, which is really sort of an insight into the geek factor that I allow myself every once in a while, whilst looking for wines and winemakers for naked, excuse me, I keep my radar open for innovation and development and advancements in wine quality and wine science and so on. And there's a company that offered to come to the UK before lockdown. They wanted to show me a range of wines which were closed under different closures. So Eddie, I'm not sure if this will speak to you in terms of advancements in technology and closures. So that's the cork or the screw cap, that's a closure. And that didn't happen, but now we've sort of caught up again, and they sent me samples here, and I had a meeting with them yesterday, and I tasted through some wines. So one exact same wine bottled under the one is their cork, and another is not I would say a competitor cork. Absolutely beautiful wines, Araviette Aubryon, and it's incredible. I'll leave it there. But the cork that they wanted to show the quality from, they said this cork's better than the other cork, and I tasted, and they wanted my feedback live, on a Zoom call, and I went, well, I have to be honest, it's not, it's terrible. The other one is much better, and they were surprised and open to it. However, later I tasted the reds. That was a white wine. The reds, their cork was better than the opposition cork, and it's all about, and where I'm going with this is just to explain, there is a style of wine, there's a quality and a premium level of a wine, there is the structure of the grape. All of these things relate to why you might use a certain closure: screw cap, cork, plastic cork, DM, various things, and all of them are quite evident, and it can actually, all the work, we go back to Eddie, the planting of that vineyard, carrying buckets to set the grape, set the vine into the ground to grow it. And it takes 4 years to give its first yield, and it grows and grows. And imagine doing all of that work 4 years, and you make the wine, and it's released in its 5th or 6th year, and then you bottle it. All the talent in the winemaking, you bottle it, and you bottle it with the wrong closure, and it looks terrible. Can you imagine that travesty? And that is why this last window of bottling, closure, and all that sounds very boring and geeky, but it is so essential to delivering what the winemaker intended the wine to look like. So lest we forget the people of the closure world. There you go. That's my little vignette and championing various closures. So I digress, and we bring it back to Lebanon. Eddy, we were very lucky to have you here. Now, it hasn't been an easy year for anyone, but in Lebanon, it was tough on many levels last year. You had the lockdown, which we'll talk about, but then March up to October, but in October you had the blast in Beirut as well. Can you just tell us a bit about the blast? And maybe a bit more detail than I'm giving, so just to contextualize it for everyone, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very tough for Lebanon the last few years. It actually started around end of 2019 when the Lebanese people were protesting against the existing political system, and the social upheaval and uprising also caused the currency to crash. So everybody's money bank accounts were frozen. Nobody had access to their money. Dollar accounts were frozen. And to make things worse, in August of 2020, except other than the pandemic, of course, there was the blast in Beirut, which was caused by thousands of tons or a few tons of fertilizer. And I think over 200 people were killed, thousands were injured, and hundreds of thousands were rendered homeless. So this was a very big shock to an already suffering population. We were lucky enough that nobody from my family was hurt, but my mom was in her atelier. She's an artist, so she makes sculptures and so on. And glass broke everywhere. It barely missed her. But not a scratch. And my sister was only a few hundred meters away from the blast, but she was inside a car, and the glass shattered as well, but she wasn't injured at all.
Oh my God.
We have a boutique in Beirut that was damaged. The glass was damaged, but again, nobody was hurt. And my family and I, the kids and my wife, we were in the Bekaa, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a mountain range.
The Bekaa Valley, you mean? So this is, how far away is that from Beirut, the Bekaa Valley, where your winery is?
Well, more important than the distance is the fact that there's an entire mountain range, at 1,500 meter high mountain range separating me where I was, at the winery, and Beirut. And I felt the blast. I stepped outside thinking maybe it was something happening in Syria, which is only 15 kilometers away. And actually 10 minutes later, I found out it was from the blast in Beirut. So it was felt incredibly through the mountain.
That's incredible. Yeah. And I mean, you talk about the sad loss of life and then the displacement. And so how was that? That was last October. We're in May now. And so how has that progressed or evolved? Has the community been able to support people? The government, I don't believe you're a fan of the government.
The government pretty much did very little, especially the day of the blast and the following days. It was more people, the community help each other. People, strangers were helping people clear up the rubble, while policemen and soldiers were just watching. So it was, but it reinforced the sense of community amongst the Lebanese people. But it was a very, very tough and still tough thing that we're going through right now.
And COVID, let's say the lockdown, the COVID situation, how has that affected you as a business, let's call it? Did you sell much wine in Lebanon as well?
No, and this is how Naked helped me a lot. I mean, and the Paradis helped in that sense as well. We lost. I mean, as when I sell locally, I sell mostly to restaurants, so it's more of a restaurant wine, and 90% of the sales just vanished. So we weren't, but we were happy to have, be able to export to Naked, which saved us essentially.
So this was part of the $5 million COVID rescue fund, and many people are able to get that now at Naked. But yeah, I mean, I think what we experienced last year was just this maintaining clear communication between our winemakers and our angels was pivotal to sort of I don't know, everyone's sort of ability to invest and support the winemakers. We've been sort of funding somewhat or supporting winemakers to date, whether they want advance payments or so on, or even just not funding in advance, but future commitments on wine. And that's been the Naked model until now. But I think last year, that COVID rescue fund, where we sort of brought up 5 million immediately available and deployed it to winemakers around the world, and angels immediately jumped in and bought a parcel from Spain, bought a parcel from South Africa, from France, and now they have your wine available to them. It's, I don't know, it just keeps the world moving around if we can just keep sort of recycling these funds. You know what I mean? You give to us, then we sell to the angels, then the funds come in, and then we sort of put it into the next place. And as long as we keep our ethics clear on the table, I think this can go further. This can go wider. In fact, I might ask you now if, I hadn't thought this, but I mean, if you know of other, don't worry, we'll give you lots of business too, Eddie. But if you think of other winemakers in Lebanon that you recommend, then we can explore those as well. But I just think it's very important to keep things alive and moving the whole time, and because we actually don't know what's coming around the next corner. So just ensuring that all our winemakers are healthy and in a good place is key. Okay, now I want to ask you quickly, Eddie, about food, because when I was there, I was so fortunate. One of the greatest memories, and as soon as I got on the plane to leave Lebanon 2017, I was like, I'm absolutely 100% going back to Beirut and up the valleys and so on. So can you tell us, just to give, because there's a lot of food lovers that tune in, but tell us a bit about the cuisine in Lebanon, what you like to eat, whether you cook or not, what you do on a celebration day or something like that. Can you share?
Yeah, well, Lebanese food is famous. I mean, everybody knows Lebanese food. It's very much Mediterranean. Sorry. We have a lot of fresh vegetables, not too much meat, but generally when we have a get together, we have something called the meza, which is lots of, it's essentially tapas. You have a lot of small dishes of various meals, usually culminating in a few skewers of grilled meats, usually lamb. People here prefer lamb, but beef as well, and chicken, shish taou. Those are essentially what constitutes a meza. Now, if I'm going to be totally honest, I would more pair a meza with ara, which is our national drink. This is a distilled spirit made from grapes. Ours is distilled 4 times and then flavored with aniseed. It's very similar to ouzo or raki. And it serves the purpose of cleansing the palate between each. When you taste something from one plate and you want to taste something else, you kind of cleanse the palate with the ara.
Very good. Does Fauzi at Tournelle, Domaine de Tournelle, does he make that at his place?
Yeah, I think several wineries do. We do it as well. We used to until, I mean, if groups want to come, we have like a hilltop site with an amazing 360 view of a lake and a valley. And when we do a barbecue. So it's a very common thing when we have guests over. But now, because of the pandemic, we stopped doing it.
Yes, yeah. So let's fast forward to, say, 2023. and all is well in the world, and peace and love and harmony and safety. When Beirut is such a beautiful city to visit, and Lebanon is such a beautiful beautiful country to visit. Can angels contact you and say, they're going to go and fly to Lebanon? Can they visit the winery? Could they taste your wines and everything you're offering there? Is that possible?
Absolutely, absolutely. I look forward to it. This is an open invitation. As soon as it's possible, I would love to receive anybody who would like to come and visit, and we can organize such a mesa.
Amazing. We're sort of thinking about what we can do on a special occasion for our naked crew, and I think a chartered flight to Lebanon would just be out of this world. Fantastic.
Count me in.
So, Eddy, as we promised, why don't we just take in some of the questions in the Q&A section there. Thanks for everyone driving the chat, the community in the chat section. So we jump into the Q&A and we go right up to the top, as we do, as always. We start with Lee. Thanks, Lee. So what has been the impact of climate change on the business? Very good question.
It's been terrible. I mean, we've been getting more erratic weather. So there's more heat waves, stronger heat waves. Sometimes the winter is too mild. I rely on winter temperatures to cold stabilize the wines. I don't use an artificial stabilization.
So
sometimes,
on that note, that's so that your white wines are clear and they're not cloudy. You sort of stabilize the.
It's to prevent the sedimentation inside the bottle. When you have the tartaric acid sedimentation, which is what you find in the Petit Paradis, essentially. So crystallization of tartaric deposits. That's what the cold temperature does. It prevents it from happening in the bottle.
Okay, and so you've been relying on the natural cold temperature previously, and sorry, are you saying with climate change that's less of an option?
Yeah, and 2020, for example, we had a massive heat wave that essentially lasted for weeks, and that caused all the grapes to ripen at the same time, and all the wineries were trying to harvest all of their grapes at once, and that was not possible. There weren't enough workers. So us personally, we lost 25% of our harvest.
Wow!
It just became raisins on the vines.
Wow! So it's a logistical harvest, which would it typically last you 6 to 8 weeks, the picking period?
Yeah, we start in around end of August, third week of August, and it continues up until first week of October, approximately.
And fortuitously, Cabernet ripens later, Merlot ripens a bit earlier, so you bring that in, and then you bring the next one in, and then you bring the next one in, and you manage them all individually. But when they all ripen at once, it's like all
disaster.
the tactics coming together, and that's it. No, it's a nightmare. Okay. Steve Carter, why such a mix of varieties, grape varieties?
This is what my dad chose to plant when he first started. I don't think I mentioned that my dad started the winery. He started it as a hobby, and I only joined him afterwards. So he's the one who decided these were his favorite grapes to plant, and some of them were just experiments, like the Viognier for him. And we just, since we don't buy grapes, these are the grapes that are available to us, and this is the grapes. These are the grapes we use to make wine. Okay,
very good. Well, it works. Tell your dad, and tell your dad I said hi as well, because he was the first name that I met. Question from Richard here. Brumid, can we have Eddy make some more Mago Oaky, pretty please? So I should really screen these questions, because this, I don't know, Eddy, have you been sending out questions to some of the angels, say, why don't you ask them to buy more of that stuff? But so yeah, let's talk about Mago, which was just this beautiful wine that we sort of said, look, if you can make any wine, it was, I think it was around the time we did this Crush campaign, so ask what you wanted to make. You made Mago. So remind us of Mago. What, where, why, what, who?
So Mago, by the way, a lot of people get confused with the name. It says Mago underneath. It looks like it says Oki, but in fact it's Mago written in Phoenician letters.
Phoenician.
But yeah, it does look like Oki. So it's Mago was a Phoenician agricultural writer who lived in Carthage, and he wrote some of the earliest works on viticulture and winemaking. And it was through these works that the Greeks learned how to make wine, who then gave that knowledge to the Romans, who then spread it across the Roman Empire. So he's essentially the source of knowledge of winemaking in Europe. So the wine served to pay homage to Mago. And I do want to make another Mago, but I haven't discussed it yet with Ray. So it's possible. We'll see.
Yeah, let's talk. I like wine. I like you. I like Lebanon. I like Mago. So let's go again. Okay. Well, we'll speak tomorrow. We can speak now, but we've got some questions to answer. Okay. Helen Goddard Nichols, thank you. Hi, Eddy Ray. Thanks for an interesting introduction to your house and wines. I trust you don't mind I mentioned that. What is a benchmark Lebanese wine in the UK, the Shadow Muzar, especially when made by Gaston Hocher? How do you regard Muzar against yours as a model, or have you moved beyond, please? It's a very good leveling benchmark question, Helen. I sort of shared my view on Hocher and Muzar. So, and in yourself, Eddy, you know, when you were starting off, you would have followed this sort of, they dominated, let's say, and how did you interpret that?
Well, Muzar is very unique, I would say, not just in Lebanese, amongst Lebanese wine, but globally. He's quite unique. He has a very particular character, and people either love it or hate it. But I don't want to try and make a wine that is similar to Muzar. I try to make a wine that is expressive of my terroir and the soil and the grapes that are grown on my vineyards around the winery. So I don't try to emulate him, but I do think Muzar paved the way for Lebanese wines to become known, and I appreciate that very much. And I'm a big fan of Muzar myself. I do enjoy the wines very much.
And so do I. I really do. And what I identified though with yours, when you hold this, you look at this glass, the color. So Muzar is typically, you could make a comparison between Rioja, and this is not in flavor, but old style Rioja, where it's a little bit evolved, lighter color, lots of oak and evolution. And you've got modern Rioja. So latter days, in the past couple of years, you get a deeper style of more concentration of fruit, bolder, darker fruit, old Rioja, new Rioja. And Eddy, I would simply just put you in that new Rioja, where you're looking at purity of fruit to the fore. Oak is there, but complementary, whereas Muzar is excellent and elegant and complex, but it is more of the tertiary, third development character flavors. And each to their own. And you know, each adds a string to the bow of Lebanese winemaking. So it's very important to have that breadth, I think. Another question now from Daniel: do you use French or American oak, or
both? We essentially use mostly French oak. I did try some American oak. I didn't find it worked particularly well with my wines, so I stopped using them. American oak works for some other wineries and some other wines, but for me, I felt the oakiness was overpowering and essentially hiding the fruit. I find the French oak provided a more elegant result, so I stopped using them.
Gotcha. Good, thank you. Let me see, we had a question I just skipped over from Melanie. Can you protect your vines from the snow? That's a good question. I know they do that in China. Do you protect or is it necessary to protect your vines from the snow?
Snow is not really what damages the vines, it's more frost. So the snow actually can protect the vine from frost if it's covered by snow. And that's how I think they grow grapes in Canada. There is the danger of too much snow accumulating on the vines and breaking them. That's a possibility. But the bigger problem is frost. And we have lost quite a few, mainly Merlot. We lost a lot of Merlot to frost in previous years.
Okay, so even though you are where you are between the two mountains, you're more of a continental climate. Well, actually, continental climate gets it a lot. So Europe has had a terrible year for frost this year, 2021. And how has this year been for you with regards frost?
This year, no damage from frost. Another potential problem is hail. Sometimes it hails and can damage the buds or the leaves. We had that happen last year.
Okay, never a dull moment. Sue McNaught, perhaps from the auditing committee, what is your annual production?
I make about between 50 and 70,000 bottles a year.
Okay.
Depending on, yeah.
That is what I think you would define as boutique, a boutique winery.
Yeah, it's quite small. Yeah.
But absolutely, I mean, it's not about the volume, it's about the quality of the produce, and it's rock and roll. Jean, has your family always been involved in winemaking, or have you started from scratch? Now, I think there's two sides to this answer, and I'm going to steer you. There's your father and starting the winery, but then you, Eddy, in your background. Maybe this is a good opportunity to tell both of those stories.
So yeah, my dad started making wine as a hobby. This was around 2004. And when we saw he was making good wine, at the time I was working in Dubai as a management consultant, and I wasn't very happy. So I suggested to him, why don't we turn this hobby of yours into a family business? And he agreed. So around 2009, I started taking winemaking courses at UC Davis in California through the internet. I didn't actually go to California. And we just kind of dove in and started, making wine together. And later on, when things got a bit too much for us to handle, I asked my sister, who was also working in Dubai at the time, to join us and kind of take over some parts of the business. And that's how it is.
And is your sister still involved?
Yes, absolutely. She left her job in Dubai and is working full-time with us. She handles sales and marketing.
Gotcha. Awesome. That's beautiful. Nice one. So that's Jean, and then we have Jeanette Meringue. Where do you get your experience, inspiration for the different blends? Jeanette from Northwood.
What drives the resulting blend is essentially what is the best that can be made with the wines that I have that particular year. So that's the primary factor. I don't mind changing the blend drastically, as if that means that the resulting wine, at least in my view, is a better wine. And this happened, for example, for the Chateau Canafard, the premium red in 2013, where normally I have the three vintages, the three varietals, Syrah, Merlot, and Cabernet Sauvignon. And that year, the Cabernet Sauvignon just was not up to par. And for me, it didn't make sense to force the Cabernet Sauvignon. No matter how much I added of the Cabernet, it would always result in a lesser wine. So I removed the Cabernet entirely from the blend. So the quality of the wine is what drives the resulting blend.
I think that's really good. I mean, I think, blends ameliorate, they bring the sum of all parts together to make something better. And it's really important. I think the art of blending and the concept of blending, it goes into perfume, it goes into bread, it goes into everything. And so when you know what's right and what's not, it's cooking basically, isn't it? It's overcooked or it's overdone. You add various elements to bring it together. And it's the same in wine, which kind of simplifies or enables us to get our head around it, I guess. Russell, we still have doing really good. We've got 6 minutes left, and I think we're on top of it. Oh no, God, the questions are piping in there. So Russell, how many different wines do you make, Eddy?
Good question. I can show you if you like.
This is really the hard sell from Eddy. Here we go.
So here we have the full range of wines. This is the Chateau Canafard, the premium red that is with naked. This is a bottle of Magot. This is the Paradis. This particular one is 2016, and the Petit Paradis. But I also have here the Chateau Canafard 2009, which was the last vintage my father made before I took over.
Wow.
And there's often a rivalry between, when people come and taste, I say, which one do you prefer? And of course, he's very happy when people say they prefer this one. And the other wines that I make are my premium white. This is 100% Viognier, fermented in barrels and aged in barrels for 12 months. I only make about 1,500 bottles of this per year. This is the Rosé. It's mainly Tempranillo, but I do add a little bit of Syrah, and I have a little bit of Zinfandel, not much, but it's also in the blend. And I have 100% Sauvignon Blanc and 100% Riesling, which I think people will be surprised to hear. We do grow Riesling. We do grow Riesling successfully in Lebanon. It has a wonderful acidity and it has its own character. It's a bit different than the Riesling you find in other parts of the world. But these are small productions, which is essentially why it's difficult for me to export to naked. I don't know if that can change in the future, but essentially for the moment, it's difficult to export those. And this is, by the way, this is our ada, our distilled drink, anis.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, okay, so it tastes a bit like ouzo. So do you add water? Do you drink it neat?
Yeah, we add water. Essentially, the proportion is 2/3 water, 1/3 ada, and we add an ice cube. And lately, it's been trendy to use it in cocktails, make mixed drinks with it. It works very well.
Thinking. Thirsty Thursday, Thirsty Tuesday. Okay, so Greg, where do you live, Ray? Looking to move next door. I live in Marlow, where dreams come true. Mark, hi, Mark. Eddy, when can we visit? There's a group of us who want to come to your winery. Did you say doors are open, Eddy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when the pandemic is over, I mean, or at least we have herd immunity, or most people are vaccinated, I think that's when is the best time to visit.
Awesome. Eddy, at some stage. Okay, Brian. Okay, Brian. Hi. I was in Beirut around 18 months ago when the protest started, and there's been the explosion since. I read there are still issues now. How is this impacting on your wines? We may have covered it, but is there anything to add to that question, Eddy?
It's been very difficult finding parts to fix equipment. Things are becoming more scarce, more difficult to obtain. Challenging, I guess, it's very challenging at the moment. But we're getting by.
Good man. What is the situation with wine tourism in the Bekaa Valley? And let's expect that sort of contemporary. Are you able to move about Lebanon? Say, well, you know.
Yeah, there's no issue. There are certain parts of the Bekaa that one should avoid, but generally speaking, it's a very safe thing to do. There are many wineries that people can visit. It's quite an experience. I recommend it.
Cool, very good. Michael Parker, for how long will your wines improve in the bottle, assuming I have the patience to wait? So let's take Paradiddle de Canafar. How long will this is 2018? So how long will this improve in bottle?
I think the Petit Paradis 2018 is still a bit young. I think it'll reach its peak at least in the coming 2-3 years. This is just an opinion. It's difficult to know. I mean, it depends on storage conditions. But generally, and also there isn't that much history where we know that the wines have aged for 20-30 years. But what the feeling we're getting from how we see the wines evolve is, for example, the Chateau Canafar can age easily for 20 years, the Paradis easily for 15 years, and the Petit Paradis at least for 10 years.
Awesome. Okay, good. I think, and the context to that is you have this fresh climate, though it's hot days, cool nights, you have sort of like a good balance in terms of freshness, and then you have the structure of Cabernet Sauvignon going through. So there are a number of elements that sort of support your position that these wines can age 10 or 15 years. You know, it's not just gut feel, and rather I would like to say that I would back that up through assessing this wine and many other wines that I taste. When I go, I can see the longevity of the wine. So yeah, they look like wines that I can age. Has Ray had a few of Lebanon's national drink? I think Stephen is suggesting that I'm half cut. It's not at all the case. Well, I've had quite a bit of Eddy's wine. I've been enjoying it. Thank you very much, Stephen. Andrew, what about lighter reds like Beaujolais style? So you touched on that sort of carbonic maceration. Do you go? I mean, you've got Carignan there. Any interest in making a lighter style red, Eddy?
I am very interested in growing some Cinsault. And Cinsault is the Pinot Noir of warmer regions. It makes for a wine that very much resembles the Pinot in terms of light color. It's very fruity. I'm planning on planting Cinsault and making Cinsault, which works very, very well in Lebanon. It balances very well the intense and powerful wines that come out from Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Merlot. So Cinsault kind of mutes that a little bit and makes it more softer and easier to drink.
Awesome. Everything in equilibrium. Okay, we will do 3, let's say 4 more questions So we got Russell here who's asking, will you expand the volume of your winery operations? Actually, Eddie, just for the setting in the background, would you mind getting up, getting mobile, taking yourself around to the barrel room there, just so we can sort of see that again, just to sort of close us out with some sort of bit of scenery, change of scenery for all of us. Here we go. I love this winery. I can't wait to get there, Eddie. So Eddie, will you expand the volume of your winery operations? Will you still rely on a lot of manual labor to run such large operations?
Essentially, the bottleneck for me right now is the grapes. I don't have, I need to plant more vineyards, or I need to change my philosophy and start buying grapes or renting, let's say, other vineyards. So that's the bottleneck for now. But the way the wine is made will stay the same. It's all going to be done manually. The harvest is done manually as well. So yeah, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, slowly but surely. That's cool. Okay, and then from Andy, hi Eddie, can you tell us a little about Chateau Canafar 2014, please? I have a bottle which I am still looking forward to open. And by the way, Eddie, you're welcome to do it. So there you go. That's it. Yeah, so just anyone who is hoarding Chateau Canafar 2014, an incredible bottle of wine. What should they expect? What's the window in terms of timing to open it? What do you think?
I think it's quite subjective. I mean, some people prefer wines that are a bit younger. Others prefer the more evolved notes on the wine. Personally, I think the 2014, for me, to my tastes, is very much enjoyable now. And this is, by the way, a problem for many winemakers. We tend to prefer younger wines, let's say, because we taste young wines all the time, and our palate kind of gets used to that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I would say it'll be very interesting to drink between now and 5 years from now. This is a window of very much enjoyable to drink the wine.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And Tina wanted to know, would Eddie be able to make any white wines for Naked Wines? I have to ask the question. I'm here to deliver the questions. Would you be able to, Eddie?
Yes, absolutely.
There you go. That's another one for our call this week. We will chat. Awesome. And Pauline, what was the background to you becoming a winemaker? I think we may have touched on it. Was this related to your father making wine and you were managing consultant? And
yeah, so essentially I suggested to my father that we make it a family business, and that's where I entered the world of winemaking.
Awesome. Well, you're knocking it out of the park, Eddie. It's been awesome. It's been just a fantastic privilege just to see the winery and taste the wines. And honestly, as I said at the very beginning of this, you compliment you. It's just wonderful having you in the range. It was great to meet you first time 2017 in Lebanon, and then again up in the Bekaa Valley, and then up back in Beirut. And keep on rocking in the free world, my friend, and take good care. It's been a lovely evening hanging out with you, and I cannot wait to visit Lebanon again and eat and drink with you and your family.
Thanks, Ray. It was great, and I'd like to thank everyone who attended. It was very much wonderful for me as well.
Nice one. Thanks everyone for tuning in. There's a few more sessions coming up in the following weeks, but this was a special one. I really have to say, I loved it. Take care, Eddie, my man.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, man.